I agree with what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. Stop agreeing with yourself. Stop agreeing with yourself.
Hello and welcome to Glass Half Full Reviews, where we review movies even you haven't seen yet. Today, I will be reviewing Snowpiercer. So, Snowpiercer is based on a French graphic novel, essentially by the same name, translated, and is directed by South Korean director Joon-ho. And this movie is very interesting. So, it basically takes place in the not-so-distant future, and mankind has essentially decided, okay, we need to do something about this global warming, nonsense. So they send a bunch of chemicals up into the air, but it has an unintended side effect of causing an unending and horrible winter that kills most of humanity. Classic, hubris, Twilight Zone, that kind of thing. Oh, I dropped my glasses. So the only remnants of humanity, as far as we know, are on this train, a train that has tracks that go around the world and loops back, an engine that seems to just keep running, as far as they know. This has already been the 17th year of this train going as we get into the movie. And they're about to start a revolt. Who? You might ask. Why, the people in the back of the train. Because the train is divided by class. In the front of the train, you have the rich, pampered, crazed people that are just gorging themselves on luxury items and drugs and just, trying to deal with the fact that it seems like everyone's dead by just drowning their sorrows. Whereas in the back of the train, you have all the poor people being fed protein bars made out of who knows what. And basically, every so often, they start losing people. People die all the time. So they're being brutalized, abused by guards from the front trains, including this leader who is Tilda Swinton, who is this horribly abusive, hilariously scene-chewing villain. And it would seem out of place, except this movie, if you remember, is adapting a comic book. So it actually really works. It's like this crazed villain versus these horrible, dark overtones and undertones. It fits together well. Chris Evans essentially is the main character here, and he's sort of this tactical leader. He has a dark past, and we don't really know much about him. But he wants to help lead a rebellion, helped on by their spiritual leader, John Hurt, an older man who basically has his own dark past, and they want to have him installed as the leader of the train instead of who's there already, this mysterious man called Wilfred that they don't really know much about. So basically they come up with a plan. Okay, we have to capture this train, and then this train, and then this train car, and then this train car, because this is where a prisoner is that will know this particular information that will help us get further. And this one has this particular, okay, this is the water. We need to get there so we can cut off water for other people, and so on and so on. So it reminds me a lot of The Great Redemption, if you've seen that movie. And it has that kind of vibe, except this one has more of a story going on. There's more of a mythology, because there's something else happening. We're learning about the history as we're going. And it's a very interesting multicultural cast, like Octavia Spencer, who plays this mother that's also helping out. She's just as vicious as anyone else. Jamie Bell is this young guy who basically has only known life on the train, and he idolizes Chris Evans. So they keep moving. They may have come across this crazed South Korean guy and his daughter. It's a very interesting thing as they keep moving from car to car, having to face new challenges. Sometimes they have to use wits, strength, numbers. Sometimes they have to make terrible sacrifices or make horrible decisions, decide what's really important. And as you keep going from car to car, things change. The cinematography changes, the colors change, the way it looks, how it feels. Everything gets a little weirder and different as they keep moving further and further into the train. It has an entirely new dystopian feel as it keeps going. And this movie is just really great. It's kind of long. It's 2.5 hours, but for me it worked really well. It was paced very well from my perspective. And the ending was it blew me away. Now, this is a kind of movie that has a lot of action beats, sort of reminiscent of Matrix-inspired stuff, but it also has some very interesting philosophical stuff, also kind of Matrix-inspired in some ways. I feel like it's a nice spiritual successor to the Matrix. Other than the Matrix sequels, which, for another day. So, I can really only say this movie's really great. I don't want to reveal anything else because it would just say too much. Now, right now, it's only available in limited release, but it should also be available on demand. So, as cool as seeing it in a theater. You can't, I would say, do that, but if you can't, you can watch on demand. Now, let's get into my 5-point breakdown. Alright, so, in general, everyone's great here. I mean, Chris Evans, some of the best acting you'll see from this guy. He has a very interesting, subtle performance, showcasing all the pain and hurt in his eyes. And it's not really a kind of jokey thing, an earnest thing you've seen from like his Captain America stuff, or even like if you go back to the Fantastic Four terrible movie where he played Johnny Storm. I mean, he does a great job. All the subsidiary characters, they're also really great. I mean, Jamie Bell he's probably one of the weaker parts, but he's not terrible. John Hurt, he plays old guy pretty well. He doesn't always have the best material. I mean, you look at, like, say, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull for that. But in general, I think everyone's very good. Tilda Swinton is just unbelievable. Just like coming off the screen, just a way of chewing every syllable, the way she talks. It's just like, wow. Just blows you away. It's very impressive. Number 2. All right, so the story works really well here. It's very simple in a lot of ways. You're just sort of going through the train, car by car. Yes, that's a simple one. There's a revolt. But then you find out more. More gets revealed as you go on. You find out more about the characters. Sometimes it gets a little clunky, just a little too heavy in the exposition time. But usually, I think it works really well. To the point where, there may be some scenes that seem like plot holes. But really, once you get past that, I feel like the movie just holds together really well. So to me, the story works. And it has a very interesting dualistic ending where you're not really sure what the movie's trying to say. Is it trying to be hopeful or the opposite? I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess that's up to the viewer. But for me, I guess I prefer to think of it from the hopeful side of things. This is more of my personality. So I guess that's just a personal decision. All right, let's move on. So this movie looks amazing. It starts in a very dark looking, gritty feel in the back of the train. But as they start going through things, it changes. Every car has a different feel. It's very impressive. A very different kind of cinematography that they use as they move through it to give you a different feel, a different sense. I just love that. Looking outside, sometimes when they actually do look outside at the outside world covered in snow, it's also amazing. It's very impressive. Just a beautiful looking movie, filled with brutality too, but it was also beautiful to look at. So leaving this movie, I was sort of I felt like interesting about it. Like, wow, I really liked that. I wasn't like, I didn't have like an adrenaline rush. I didn't feel like a sense of epiphany because it didn't say anything that I didn't think I already knew. It wasn't saying anything necessarily radical per se, but for a movie that this was this expensive, I think the metaphor, I think it's kind of surprising that you would see it in such a big film. So for me, that was very interesting. I really felt like it worked very well. All right, number 5. So I don't really know how well this movie is going to do. It's not playing in very many theaters. It's mainly only playing on demand, but I think that there's some interesting messages here, trying to talk about humanity and the system that we're in, and, is it doomed or is it not doomed? And what's the point of trying to stay within the system versus trying to work against it or try to leave it, even if it's to your detriment or death? I don't know, it's tough. There are a lot of interesting ideas here. I don't know how much is actually going to sink in to people, but, you never really know with this kind of thing. I really like it. I think it's a blockbuster that has a lot of depth, which, let's get into my recommendation. So if you can handle, brutality, some dark themes, and dark ideas, challenge you a little bit, but still have a lot of fun action-wise, I would say you should see this movie if you like a newer, kind of updated version of The Matrix. That kind of thing. And if you don't think that's really your cup of tea, then I would stay away. If you can't handle brutality, it does get kind of violent at times, so it's really not going to be for everyone. All right? Thanks for stopping by.